Joining me on the channel today is S.G. Wilson, author of Me versus the Multiverse.
Yeah.
Pleased to meet me, a middle grade novel from Random House, out now. And it's about a kid who gets invited to a convention filled with alternate versions of himself from alternate versions of Earth.
Yeah.
That's a good introduction, right?
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for being on the channel, SG.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And I was thinking a good place to start actually would be, can you explain what the multiverse theory is?
Oh yeah, well, I actually have a lot of charts and blackboard with equations that I can pull out and explain it all. No, I have absolutely no idea about the science behind the multiverse. I fall asleep when people start talking about string theory and all these things. But basically the whole idea from a pop cultural standpoint, where I'm interested, is that there are different Earths. Like if you, I don't know, I suppose anytime you make a decision, it can split apart, and that other decision could be another Earth. And, there's a progression of several Earths, and some of them can be quite different from ours. That's kind of that's how it always is in like Star Trek and stuff anyway. So anyway, and that's kind of the basis of where I started from.
I love it. So like there's like a version of Earth where I decided to be a veterinarian. And then there's a version of Earth where I decided to study math in school.
Oh yeah, I know. Sometimes I'd like to go to that Earth or just get some tips,
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I always like to kind of start at the beginning and explore your story of becoming a published author. So what kind of kid were you?
Oh yeah, kind of a mess, really. No, I was both shy, but also kind of spazzy, and kind of depended on the situation a lot of the time. But I always liked reading and everything, and I was an okay student till maybe like 6th grade, and then everything started to get hard, like math. And I still always liked English, but then I had horrible like teachers in junior high who were mainly coaches, and they were, not to disparage coaches or anything, but they were just mainly there. They were just mainly there to be coaching, and then they just taught English because somebody had to do it. So that almost scared me away from writing. Yeah, but then I had these really great teachers in high school, English teachers in high school, who kind of, were really good and inspiring and supportive. So.
And what kind of books did you like as a kid?
Oh yeah, I like to know a lot of science fiction and fantasy and comic books and the like. But then I just try other random things. My mom was part of some kind of local, before she started working, she was transitioning toward that, and she was doing a lot of volunteer stuff. And so she used her craft skills to carve all these signs at our local library. And so, but that meant I just had to hang around the library. And I started just kind of like challenging myself to just go through sets of books. Like there was these kids versions of biographies of famous people, mainly like famous white men, like Franklin, that kind of thing. And they were really cheesy. But I just like, kind of challenged myself to just go through all of them. And so, I don't know, it kind of helped me appreciate kind of an eclectic mix of stuff to read, so just whatever caught my eye at the library.
Yeah.
Mainly a lot of focus was on fantasy and all that escapism, mainly.
At what point did you decide to go from a reader to wanting to write your own stuff?
Oh, well, I guess maybe around high school. I think I always wanted to, but I just had, I remember actually in 3rd grade, I wrote to Beverly Cleary. We kind of had to write to somebody, but Beverly Cleary was my top choice. And she wrote me right back. I said, I want to be a writer. And she wrote back. The only reason I remember this is I still have the letter somewhere, but it's momentarily lost, but which I hope it's not completely lost. But she wrote back saying, oh, I'm so glad you want to be a writer. It was like really encouraging and nice. So
I remember that assignment. I wrote to R.L. Stein.
Oh, great. Yeah. That's awesome.
He never wrote back though.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, he was pretty busy at certain I think I caught Beverly Clear when she was not so busy,
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, and then I don't think I had quite had the attention span to finish much of anything that I started. But then in high school, I kind of started doing journalism, and that's really easy because you get the satisfaction of completing something and writing something that could be kind of like a narrative, but then you're done and you turn it in, So I actually kind of did that. That's been my career for much of my life ever since, really. But I always wanted to do a novel,
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. So you're a professional journalist?
Yeah. Kind of more of a leisure journalist in a way, like stuff like food writing, and used to be travel until that kind of, isn't so much in demand for that anymore these days. So,
yeah.
And just other random things, but a lot of magazine writing, basically.
And at what point did you decide to try your hand at novel writing?
Well, I think I had really wanted to do it, but then, maybe when I got out of my 20s, I finally thought I really have to. And then, my kids, I knew kids were going to be on the way, and so I was like, I got to try to really knuckle down and do this, And then I started to write some stuff, but nothing ever really, just stuff that just got rejected and stuff until this one, really. But yeah, once I started, it was, there's no going back, really. So.
Yeah, definitely. Tell us about the day that you found out your book was going to be published.
Oh yeah, well, I was largely convinced it wasn't going to be picked up. It had been a while, and we had to go through a few rounds. The first draft I wrote, because it was about all the characters in the book call themselves different kinds of me, like, average me, or just to tell themselves apart, because they're all the same person. And so I thought it'd be funny, since everybody's talking about me, I thought it'd be funny if it were like written in second person. And so it was like you're going to this convention, but nobody else really got that. So, but it's cool because my agent liked it, and it was a nice litmus test that we kind of clicked.
Yeah.
But then once we sent it around, then we were like, well, maybe we should rewrite this. So I had to change it all back to third person, But then, but finally though, Random House was interested in, but yeah, I was like walking around, because I'm in Austin, if that didn't come up, and I was showing my sister around with my niece, and my sons get really excited when when they see her. So they were being really spazzy, and my wife was out of town. So I was kind of having to handle my kids and show my sister around. So I was kind of really stressed out, but trying to like put on a brave face, like I'm having a great time, And then I got a text from my agent, and he told me they were interested. And then it was great. Like, we were going to see the bats in Austin. There's this bat colony that lives under a bridge.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so if you go the right time of night, they'll fly out, And so right around the time he told me that, then I was like just staring at this great sunset, and then the bats flew out, kind of like when doves are released or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't quite that magnificent, but it was kind of nice.
Like at a goth wedding, they would release the bats.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be great. That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Somebody could do that or something. Yeah.
Someone should do that, unless it's animal cruelty. If it's animal cruelty to release bats, then don't do that. But
right. I mean, it's already iffy with doves, really, but I guess we're so used to it.
Yeah. Cool. So, pitch your book. Tell us about it. Tell us.
Oh yeah. Well, like you said, it's about a boy who goes to a convention for his duplicates, and you summed it up really well. But there's a lot of jokes and comedy about different alternate Earths in it, and hopefully some thought-provoking things. I mean, just like I think good science fiction should be, kind of get you thinking more about the nature of reality, even with the fart jokes and everything that are going on.
Nice.
But also, I kind of wanted to use it as a way to talk about identity. And, the main character, like I was saying, he's going through a bit of an identity crisis. Here's his average me. I printed it out. I was really lucky to have a great illustrator, Alexi Bitsky. Yeah, and so he gets called average me. It doesn't help when he goes to the convention and they call him this. It doesn't help his self-esteem, because he already has a lot of self-esteem issues. And, doesn't feel like he knows who he is and stuff. So, and then he's forced to meet lots of other people, like Disco Me is from an Earth where the 70s are still kind of going on, and Ren Fair Me is kind of from more of a medieval Earth.
Nice.
And there's a lot of other Me's who are just like more athletic or sporty, but these are the ones who kind of are, kind of stand out. Troll Me is kind of like this kind of annoying hacker type, online troll type guy, Steampunk Me, steampunky. And, but anyway, so yeah, I'm meeting all these different versions of himself. He kind of it gives him even more of an identity crisis. And then, like this is Hollywood Me, and one more before I get to, and Resist Me is, very, one of my favorite characters. She's very, into social justice and, is very confident and stuff.
Yeah, I love it.
Or what?
Oh, I was gonna say, like, I love, so your main character has a female version of himself.
Yeah, well, actually, Resist is transgender.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so it's a lot for him to take in and figure out when he's meeting all these different versions of himself. There's other people who have different body types and stuff, so he has to process a lot of different kinds of things, like in one quick meeting with all these people. And then he meets this the guy who kind of runs Mecon, is Meticulous Me, who's super successful on his Earth, and he runs Mecon. But then he realizes that only Average figures out that Meticulous might be up to no good, and he has to, stop his plans. But to do that, he has to team up with some of the other kind of outsiders of the group of Mecon. And so he has to kind of learn how to accept himself, all these different versions, and, kind of go from there, learn how to work with, so it's kind of like a metaphor for accepting who you are, and
it also seems
there's
like
different sides of yourself.
Yeah, it seems like middle schoolers too go through this phase where you're trying on new identities a lot. Like you're trying to kind of figure out your hairstyle and your look and your way that you interact with people. And so I think that kind of seems to be a theme in your book too. And I think that's really cool.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What was a misconception that you had about publishing prior to being published that has now changed?
Well, I think that there is more that they would move faster than it does. I mean, everybody seems like, oh, so-and-so's on vacation, or they're on vacation. It's still like, it seems like a very genteel, old school kind of way of doing things, doing business, which I kind of respect on some level. But I'm also used to journalism and every other industry where everybody's like, okay, yeah, I got this for you, blah, blah, blah. Let's move this thing along. But it's not so much like that in publishing.
Yeah, that tripped me out. Like you get a deal and it gets announced, and then you hear nothing for like the longest time, and you're like, "Are they canceling my book? Like, what happened?"
Yeah. So.
Publishing's wild.
Yeah, definitely.
What's your favorite step? Is it drafting or revising?
Oh, I think revising, because I've done editing also in journalism, and it's just nice to have some text, and even if it's a total mess, that you can do something with it. It's really hard to get everything on the page for me. I have to go through a lot of tricks. Like, I'm sure everybody has a process, of course, but I feel like I have to go do every single thing that they talk about. Like, oh, you could try this or this. I have to go through everything to get everything down. But once I do, then I'm really comfortable.
So what are your tips? Is it like writing in Comic Sans? Does that work for you?
Yeah, I discovered that recently, and totally helps. Yeah, but I also sometimes just step away from the computer and write on the page when I can with a pen, usually with a printout, and that's where I feel good about revising. Sometimes I'll even do like voice memos, so on just my phone as I'm walking around. So it's been great for wearing a mask now, because I can do that without getting so many weird looks, like I'm talking to myself or something. So,
nice.
Yeah.
And do you have a huge ego, or are you humble and demure?
Well, at this point, I'm very humbled. I mean, like, it took me a long time to get anything published, fiction-wise, and then my kids have completely destroyed any semblance of an ego I may have once had. I remember being you know, feeling pretty egotistical, like when I was maybe in like their age or like in 6th grade or something, but it's all been downhill from there. So, I mean, yeah, so I feel like I'm more on the hopeful side of things.
So everyone has said that, you know, publishing takes so long, except for, I did interview someone who published their novel that they wrote when they were 17, and bless their heart,
I know.
they're wiser and more amazing than any of us will ever be. But usually it takes about 10 years.
Yeah.
Was that about how long it took for you to get published?
Yeah. Well, okay, so I actually did I had a nonfiction book published, you know, from journalism, and that was about 10 or 11 or so years. So I kind of had the validation of that. It was a biography of somebody I'd done a magazine article about, this comedian Paul Lind, and nobody read it. It was just a small thing, but it was still fun to do and like validating. But then, yeah, and then it was a long dry spell of, and it was another 10 years basically of fiction to get into the fiction thing. So it was a weird kind of experience to have, took 10 years to do a nonfiction book, and which in some ways was like the culmination of my journalistic career, and then another 10 years for this. So yeah, so I've had the experience twice in a way, I guess.
Very cool.
Yeah. Or what?
Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Oh yeah, well, I think a little of both. I think I like to plot things out and then just pull the pants down on it and redo it completely. You know, I seem to tear everything down and to rebuild.
Yeah. Are you a morning writer or an evening writer?
Well, definitely morning. I mean, I used to fancy myself some kind of nighthawk, but I'm really not. I just, by the evening, by the time it rolls around, I'm just thinking about a zillion, you know, conversations I had and all this other stuff. But when I wake up in the morning, I find I can have a much more fresh start. And I try to get up. I sometimes try to get up super early to kind of get up before my kids, so I can squeeze in a little bit of time, because then just dealing with them in the morning causes me a lot of mental whiplash, and it's hard to get back into a writing mode. You know?
Yeah, definitely. And are you a character first or a plot first writer?
I think definitely character and also the world that the character's in. Those are the things that really excite me. And then I try to figure out the plot, you know, like how to get through that world kind of last, really.
Yeah. And what has been one revision suggestion that you've gotten along the way that has been most helpful for you?
Yeah, well, I guess I did mention that whole going to third person. But before that, my agent, when I first signed on with him, he said basically just to lose the entire last half of the book. and then well, he was right. Because there are infinite, you know, worlds out there, and I had kind of written infinite versions of the story, but he helped me to realize that the current version I had just wasn't working. So and you know, so I figured out a more streamlined path to get where I needed to go. So just basically trashing a lot of it was a good suggestion.
Would you ever like to be famous?
Oh no, especially these days, you know. It used to be maybe okay when you could, like, you know, be famous and you appear on a talk show here and there, but now you have people following you all the time with cell phones and, you know, watching your
Are you so this question just came to my mind because you're doing multiverses. If you had a time machine and you could either choose to go forward in time or backwards in time, but not both, either one or the other, would you go forward or backwards?
Question. Well, I don't know. Like right now, I'm kind of, you know, I don't know. I'm a little worried about the world, and I worry if we go to the forward, it would be like nothing there, you know. But I always had this fantasy of going back in time, though, and just like helping to change something, like, you know. And that's part of where some of the alternate Earth stuff is fun for me to kind of plan. Like, what if, you know, I mean, not that I would want this to happen, but one of the Earths is like America never won the revolution, so Britain runs the world. I mean, runs the, you know, America. And it's mainly just like, everybody talks like with British slang and, you know, different. But like, I don't know, just all those things really fascinate me. So I think I'd like to go back in time and see some stuff and also see what I could tinker with, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be kind of fun. I don't care about all that, like, don't change time.
Oh no, I would totally change time. I would murder
Yeah, what would
Columbus.
you do? What would you do?
I'd murder Columbus.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, yeah, don't get me started. I've thought about that a lot. It would be awesome if, America was just kind of developed naturally and stuff. That'd be great.
Yeah, if like white people never came over to
Totally.
the Western Hemisphere,
Yeah,
that
I
would
know.
be that'd probably be the goals.
I know. And that's the thing. I had to be a little careful though. I didn't want to get too speculative because I didn't do something to offend somebody. But that was a big thing when I was writing this. I had a lot of ideas for stuff that would be really fun, and I still had a lot of fun with the Earths I created. But some of that alternate history, you have to be a little bit careful though, because you could, like I say in a book, especially for younger people, where you don't have as much room to like explore it fully. You have to really explore it, or it could end up kind of seeming like a flippant thing, and it could be sort of, I respect some of the stuff too much to like treat it in a jokey way. So, but yeah, all that stuff really fascinates me.
And so similarly, all these questions are super relevant for you. If you could have any non-supernatural talent or ability, so stressing non-supernatural, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, I think magic, not like supernatural magic, I mean like stage magic. I've always, because they always talk about like, I had to practice for hours to get good at these card tricks. And I've never had that attention span, but I've always loved it. And I'd love to be able to just like juggle and like entertain people while I'm talking to them and do card tricks and stuff. Or like a rope trick. And, but I've never had the ability to, or the hand coordination or anything to do any of that. But I'd love to be able to do it.
That's a really good answer. That's probably one of the best.
What is yours? I mean, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm getting ideas from all of you guys.
Oh, good, yeah.
Right now, I'm like, like being able to do magic tricks. That would be awesome.
It's sort of like halfway to supernatural because you're totally, people do that and stuff. So.
Just to be, be able to impress people and like do. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. I love it. What are you working on right now?
Well, I've done the second book to the series. There's going to be a sequel, and it's called like Enough About Me. This one is called Me versus the Multiverse. Pleased to meet me, and the next one's going to be Enough About Me. Still Me versus the Multiverse, main title. And I'm working on the third book, but honestly, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm under contract for 2, and then hopefully I can sell the third. And then I also have a YA idea that so I don't want to jinx it by talking too much, I guess, about it. But it's fun to switch to YA and be able to kind of like use a little more language and all that stuff. Yeah.
So, be a little naughtier in YA.
Yeah, exactly. And yours sounds really cool. I was reading about yours. It'll be out next year, right?
Yeah, and it's going to be a long time, all the way until November. So.
Right. Well, that's great. I mean, maybe things will settle down a little by then. Get more
in the meantime, I'm just going to be like boosting all you guys.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much for doing that.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the channel. I'm putting all the buy links below and all your Twitter and your social media and all of that below.
Okay.
Check out SG Wilson on Twitter and on Goodreads and get all the links below. And thank you so much for being on the channel.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.